So the controversy is back on Fremont Street, Las Vegas, my friends. Yes, that's right. After relative peace of 7 years, from something starting as far back as 2011, we have the city with allegations of fraud on the performers down on the circles on Fremont Street. If you're not familiar, Fremont Street here in Las Vegas is a huge public open space where people perform. And you see all sorts of eccentric acts, like this gentleman doing puppets and this other gentleman, I assume, waiting for him, all working for tips. You got acrobatic street performers. You have people playing the cello. Is that a cello? I don't know. But we also have some allegations of fraud. We also have allegations of wrongdoings, and we're going to look into that in this video today. So by the way, if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Steven. I'm not leaving Las Vegas. If you like this kind of a video, if you guys like to learn about the news and the controversies and the analysis and what's happening in Vegas, make sure to hit the subscribe button on your way in or on your way out after I've proven myself to you. But back to the explainer screen right here. We have the article from the Review Journal dated April 9th. Nearly 7 years after legislative and legal peace surrounding downtown's Fremont Street performers may be nearing an end, potentially setting a course for renewed controversy. Vegas lawmakers in 2015 enacted new rules governing the movement of public performers on Fremont Street. City council members did so with the hopes of bringing order to the popular canopy-covered stretch of downtown, which had too often seen entertainers jostling for the best spots. When they say jostling, what they mean is having fistfights. Yeah, people were fighting for the right to be able to perform closer to the more popular casinos like the Golden Nugget or the Plaza, where basically Main Street and Las Vegas Boulevard link up with each other, especially now with Circa being such a big draw. The lottery that they enacted, which we'll get to in a second here, I'm sure of it, that was meant to basically make sure that people would be able to reserve spots for certain time periods, but that is not what the city is alleging is happening right now. So the result was a city-administered daily lottery system that would randomly assign the registered performers to one of more than 3 dozen designated locations, each marked by 6-foot circles drawn on the pavement. 6-foot circles drawn on the pavement. Buskers could perform no more than 2 hours. Which brings us back to the other question. We stream on this channel on Fremont Street a lot. I'm a big advocate of this Fremont Street experience, East Fremont Street, even Container Park, even though we always needed, but they now enforce the written permission to go into Container Park. I want you guys to see all these places. So I think it's great, but basically we see the same performers over and over again in the same circles for such a long time that you have to wonder why this is happening. And these allegations, I'm not saying they're doing it. The street performers, I want to be on good terms with you guys. I think what you do is tough. A lot of you guys are super talented. This is what the city is alleging, and this is why there's the pushback. But the city officials say they have found an obvious issue with the computer-generated lottery system fraud. I don't know how a computer-generated lottery system works, how it has fraud, but, quote, has come to the city's attention that the system has been taken advantage of by some performers who have been reserving spots and then transferring or selling those spots. City spokesman Jace Radke said in a statement, now the city is proposing amended rules on street performances only for the second time in a decade, seeking to address exploitation of the system and other issues in the often eccentric and provocative trade within the famed pedestrian mall. I don't know what's eccentric and provocative about people doing acrobatics, but it's the newspaper and they have to sell clicks. The plan to update regulations will be controversial if history is any indication. For more than 20 years, the aptly named Fremont Street experience has been the subject of debate on free speech. And this is true. Free speech has always been a problem in Las Vegas. Just look at our Fred William, the busker, who's back in the UK, and he's doing great. So busy performing, he hardly texts me. Just look at him. I mean, he was arrested. We have a video on the channel that you should click in. I'll try to put a card up in the top of the screen. He was arrested, booked, his guitar damaged. We have people like Busk LV over on Instagram. Brandon, who is a professional violinist who plays at real venues here in town for people in enclosed environments, who has been shaken down in the past. These guys face a lot of pushback from the police for performing, and Fremont Street was the bastion of the place for those people to do that. Now it looks like that might be going away, but you know what's not going away real fast? It's our channel sponsor, Panay Magazine. Panay Magazine is actually an Ethereum 2.0 validator over on Instagram, and their goal is to showcase the global Panay to the world. This is our channel sponsor, if you haven't noticed. Thank you to them. And Panay is a woman of Filipino origin, and they're going to have their next issue having Panays from North America. Their future issues will have Panays from all over the world, the EU, the UK, the GCC group of countries. That's places in the Middle East like Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Kuwait, and all that kind of good stuff. They buy a major billboard premiering soon, moving down to the center part of the strip. You know what they say in real estate, location, location, location. So check them out while you're in town on the billboards. Check them out on Instagram by clicking the link below and tell them that Not Leaving Las Vegas sent you and that we really thank them for sponsoring the channel. So controversial, not going anywhere anytime soon. The planned update will be controversial. Michael Troy Moore, a street performer and labor organizer who claims he brought issues about the lottery system to the city in 2016, said that people like him are ultimately ambassadors of Las Vegas. A sidecar to the main draw. I completely agree. I feel the same way about all of us YouTubers who basically kept you guys during your FOMO, your fear of missing out, kept you guys informed. We're walking all over Las Vegas Boulevard, sometimes with nothing more than the blogger with the camera and maybe a scary looking person who was aggressively coming towards him. Nobody else on the strip. We were all ambassadors. These people are ambassadors as well. They give people a sense of entertainment that's free. If you drop them a few bucks, they surely appreciate it, but they don't demand it. They just keep taking more and more, he said about the city. They act like there's no one to hold them accountable to the law. Well, they make the laws, so I guess when you make the laws, no one holds you accountable. So the rules adopted in 2011, street performers protected under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The city's efforts to enact more restrictive rules barring unsanctioned entertainment under the canopy dating to 1997 have been struck down in court. One thing that's important to realize about the canopy, which I didn't know, and you can look this up, it is a private walkway. It's a private property. It's owned by the Fremont Street Experience, FSE. It's a corporation that was formed when they built the canopy down there. So I actually did have the pleasure of speaking with a higher up in the organization, I won't say who, introduced by another person who I won't say who, and he basically described it as such. Now, they like and are okay, they don't like, but they're okay with bloggers with cameras. There's a whole bunch of regulations for filming. They're trying to protect their assets. I totally understand that too. The main crux of this argument is freedom of expression. If somebody is performing, playing a guitar, singing a song, doing a backflip acrobatically, that's their right to perform artistically. And can you really take that away from a person? Fremont Street closed down Fremont Street Experience and made it a private walkway on 2020's New Year's Eve because they said if they sell tickets to it, they control it. And it is a private entity, but then they want to have it open so they can be designated as, well, we can't control this street. It's an open street when other regulations from the government come to pass. So it's kind of like a have your cake or eat your cake and have it too. That's the actual term I learned. Street performing is protected, of course. In 2011, the city council passed a less stringent ordinance to govern the 5-block pedestrian mall. To the displeasure of city lawmakers who sought tougher action, the rules were amended 4 years later to confine performances to one of 38 circles. So I understand you want to bring some balance to things. You can't have nothing but hundreds and hundreds of performers all at once because you need to have that pedestrian mall be able to have flow of human beings. It totally makes sense. You don't want to have people on top of each other bumping into the tourists that are here. That would make it a bad time for the tourists. The ACLU of Nevada, which was involved in crafting city regulations in 2011 and 2015, indicated this week that it was willing to sue the city over the proposed changes, saying the street performers were being used to justify giving more power over the public mall to the Fremont Street Experience, a private entity that manages it. I haven't read this article. I just told you about that. If we focus on the street performers, we're missing the real problem here. So there's loopholes in the system is what the city is arguing. So we're going to be addressing the loopholes. On Wednesday, the city introduced its amended ordinance, which cites overwhelming evidence that certain street performers are being excluded from what is perceived as more desirable performance locations by other street performers who are engaging in fraudulent activity. Here's the allegations. I don't know if these are true. These are alleged. In America, you are innocent until proven guilty. That's the way it goes. My old man told me that when we were in Canada. I'm from Canada originally. He said, that's what's so beautiful about America. You are innocent until proven guilty. I have to pause the video here because I'm going to cough. I apologize for the sound of my voice. I'm getting over something lasted almost 3 weeks so far. The city acknowledged that it's been unsuccessful in preventing the sale and barter of the in-demand permits that authorized performances locations, and said that there have even been hundreds of phantom or duplicate online accounts created in the system. So they're saying that this guy who does whatever he does, does magic acts, does acrobatics, I don't know. They're saying that some of these people are creating different accounts so they can enter the lottery more than once. That is easily solved. For the most part, you just basically get a person's IP address. Most people don't have the ability to change your IP address. There are ways around this. I'm not going to say them here publicly, but that's a way to lock people in. Use cookies, use social security numbers. I don't know. Maybe that's against the law too by the ACLU. To address these loopholes, the city has proposed that street performers be explicitly barred from transferring an allotted location or assigned time period to anyone else and be required to obtain photo verification card as part of their registration. Here we are with the whole photo ID thing. I'm sure this is going to be a controversial thing because it has been in other facets of American life. Unfortunately, for some people, they think photo IDs are exclusionary. I think if you are going to be performing, maybe we should know who you are just so we know who you are. I would have no problem if they told me to register as press in Las Vegas. If there was a way to do this, I would be the first in line. I'd be like, yes, please let me register as press. So if something happens, Metro knows who I am when they wonder why I'm wandering down the streets with a camera. I think that's actually probably a good idea. In addition, the city said some performers have tried to avoid enforcement of the rules enacted, invited pedestrians to participate in performances that present a safety risk, and interfered with stage performances sponsored by the FSC. Well, I've not seen people interfering with stage performances, but I really thought part of the act was you bring people in. They bring tourists into it, dance with them, or put them on their, they go on the guy's shoulders. I mean, I've seen this happen. Maybe that's against the rules. I don't know the rules. Under the proposed amended rules, buskers would be forced to obtain commercial liability insurance of at least $1 million if performances include the performer lying on the ground, acrobatics, physical participation of the audience, or stage combat, according to the bill. That might be fairly major. I don't know what liability insurance costs and what the prerequisites are to get $1 million. $1 million. I guess that's if somebody gets hurt, they would sue that person and then the liability insurance would kick in. So it would shelter any hospital bills or I don't know. I mean, that's pretty serious. To amend the ordinance, which will need to return to the council at least twice more before passage, also proposes a solution to curb sound wars, where competing performers increasingly amplify noise for attention, and lays out provisions for the use of unassigned locations, including those performers who choose not to partake in the lottery system. Well, I mean, if you don't have a right to be in a circle, most likely somebody's going to say, hey, man, that's my circle. So I think that's self-regulating. What do I know? But at the same time, what are sound wars exactly? I mean, honestly, they pump the stages over the PA system, the giant, huge 500,000 watt, I've heard it is, sound system on Fremont Street. I don't know if these guys are turning up their music. That's what the act. These are all allegations we can't prove. A company town. Fremont Street Experience, whose managing members include executives of surrounding casinos, draws more than 24 million annual visitors. According to its website, gives tourists local access to 8 casinos, 60 plus restaurants and retail kiosks, and a zip line. So we have some things about the ACLU, concerned about the public mall's privatization and street performance provisions, tantamount to making Fremont Street an extension of the casinos. This is casinos acting like this is a company town, like some sort of mining town. What I'm seeing is an ordinance that violates Constitution and raises some really important questions, especially for a city like ours. Although Fremont Street Experience is the biggest culprit for noise and crowds, it has consistently received exemptions and regulatory authority while street performers get maligned, and neither the city nor Fremont have tried to make the current system work. Well, there is an argument here for the company town argument. There is a Supreme Court case from many, many years ago about religious expression in a company town. If you don't know the term, a company town is a city where basically a mining town, or Hershey, Pennsylvania might maybe be a good example of this. I think maybe in the past, not nowadays. But a mining town would open up. They would build things around the mines, similar to basically Boulder City, which was the Boulder Dam back in the day. They would construct the buildings. They would construct the general store. They would make the police station. And then they would dictate that this is all private property, so you don't have the right. Let's say the town would say, well, we're all we're all Jehovah's Witnesses. We don't think you should be out on the street corner practicing your version of Christianity or Judaism or Islam or anything like that because we own the land. You can't do anything on it. For the record, there is zero right that any casinos have or anybody for religious stuff, which is why you see the religious people down there. Nobody will touch them with a 10-foot pole because of that rule, that provision. Now, Fremont Street doesn't own all of it, but I do believe if we look at the actual bylines and where the property sits, it is a private right-of-way with public easements, meaning that the public is able to go there, but if they tell you to leave, you have to leave. This happened to us once on a Sunday morning when a security guard told us that we were not allowed to blog with a camera and a gimbal or live stream on the experience. Other bloggers have been turned away in the past, but I'm not turning this into a bloggers Fremont Street thing. This is about the performers. An effort this week to speak to Fremont Street experiences through a representation was unsuccessful. So it says that the tourists have compelled regulations. I don't think it's a public street. I think it's a private enterprise. Oscar Goodman opined in 2011. Court battles ultimately concluded the pedestrian mall is indeed a traditional public forum. But again, it's not zoned that way as far as I can tell. It's not a free-for-all. And we get down to some proposals that did not make it into amendments in 2015 have resurfaced, including photo ID requirements, which has been a late scratch 7 years ago when it was opposed by the ACLU of Nevada. And it says the person who was fighting for it retired, so who knows where it goes now. Street performers would have to produce their photo verification card upon anybody's request, including members of the public. I don't know about that. Like, well, who are you? Who do you say you are? This just invites problems with people who want to be tougher than, and it introduces a certain level of conflict. Maybe by Fremont Street security, officers of Metro, that might make total sense. The street performer said there were constitutional issues with that proposal, noting that pedestrians do not even have to show their IDs to peace officers unless suspected of a crime. Exactly right. There you go. For Peterson, the recently proposed amendments illustrate a growing power for private interests. Street performers are really the canary in the coal mine for something that's been happening the past decade, but Fremont Street's experience recognized status as a public space does not mean that the government should seek to regulate it in the least restrictive manner. So you got to have some rules. This is true. It can't be a free-for-all. That's also true. But I think at the end of the day, Fremont Street serves an important purpose for people in Vegas, and I've said it before in videos. It's an open, fun place where they make rules. Like you can't bring a glass container onto Fremont Street. They have plastic cups when you leave the casinos. You're supposed to pour your beverage, your alcohol, whatever you might have into a plastic cup. So that way things don't break and you can't get into a fight and go Stabbyville on somebody, that kind of thing. So I'm curious to know what you think on all this. I think this is a case of, if you're going to be doing business, quote unquote, and performing and making tips as a lucrative business, we do need to have a better system so people can't be auctioning off the best spots as the city is alleging is happening. And we can't prove until they give me some hard evidence. I'm saying that I don't know if that's true. I really, really appreciate the street performers out there because they bring a sense of culture and interest into Fremont Street that you don't get anywhere else. I would love to see, just to extrapolate on the idea of street performers, I would love to see a Las Vegas where casinos have zoned outside in front of Caesar's Palace or in front of Planet Hollywood or in front of Bellagio, places where street performers can within reason perform, because this makes it more of a cosmopolitan vibe in Las Vegas. It doesn't make it a corporate town with Cirque du Soleil and the Golden Knights. God, I love the Golden Knights, but go Flames go, huh? The Golden Knights and Cirque du Soleil and just, big BTS concerts. They're good too, I guess, but just that can't be the only form of entertainment here. You have to let people come in and do their thing. But you do have to regulate it, especially in a place like Vegas where most of the year it's super hot. Every day of the year, alcohol flows 24/7, so you never know if somebody's had too much to drink, and you never know where their level is as a tourist. So you have to have some regulation. I mean, I'm not a complete libertarian. I'm not a complete person that wants to regulate everything. I'm somewhere in the middle, like I think most of you are. So drop me a comment below. Let me know what you think of this format, longer video. My name is Steven. Once again, I'm not leaving Las Vegas. I'm a Vegas blogger. Hope you guys would like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Check out our channel sponsor, Panay Magazine. and say a prayer that I'm going to get better over this, because I don't even know what my own voice sounds like anymore. And hopefully I didn't stress you out too much on this one. All right, we got to go. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, click. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, and click.